a company just used to be a company. It just used to be a place that paid people to do something, and that's it. Today, a company is a therapist, a financial planner, it's a gym, it's a catering company. It's all these different types of things. And we're seeing this blurring of work and life, right? When work is becoming life and life is becoming work. I mean, most of us even spend more time at work than we do at home.
Welcome to the Masks Off podcast, Leadership Strategies, No Disguises. I'm Razwana Waheed, and together with my co-host Olivier Larvor, we talk to the smartest people in the world of leadership, change and psychology to give leaders real strategies to bring human back to the workplace.
If you would like to support our show, please subscribe to our channel, like us, or share this episode on your social media.
You had this book about employee experience, and I thought that this will be a little bit more popular now, but still, people still talk about employee engagement and not so much about employee experience. So first of all, I would like you can you explain us what is employee experience and what is the future for this employee experience?
You brought up a couple interesting things that I think we're seeing quite a bit of. Employee engagement, I think, is something that a lot of people are familiar with, been around for a couple of decades. And it had this idea of basically improving organizations. Right. Unfortunately, though, what happened with employee engagement is most companies just view it as kind of an adrenaline shot. What I mean by that is that they view it as a temporary boost to improve satisfaction. If you look at most companies, when they get bad scores on employee engagement, they try to do like these quick little things to try to boost engagement. Free food, some kind of a perk, bring your dog to work, something. It works temporarily, right? I mean, employees get a little bit happier, and then the satisfaction goes back down, and then they introduce another perk, and then it goes back down, and you kind of get this like up and down and up and down. And unfortunately, that doesn't really do anything for the company. It doesn't drive any business performance. The employees are no more loyal. They don't contribute any more of themselves to the company. And so the company doesn't see the ROI that it wants to see. What I think employee engagement today has become inside of companies, this notion of investing in short-term perks as a way to distract employees from the realities of their work lives. Right? That's kind of what it's become. Employee experience, on the other hand, is about changing the core workplace practices inside of your company. It's not just about perks and benefits. It's about rethinking workplace design. It's about rethinking the technologies that employees use to get their jobs done. It's about how employees feel when they work there. Diversity and inclusion and management and leadership and having those people be like coaches. It's much more substantial. It's much deeper. We're talking about like dramatic changes to the company instead of just kind of superficial stuff. I think employee engagement, which, by the way, employee engagement had good intentions. I don't want to like bash it and say, oh my God, this is terrible. It did have good intentions, but it's not what it has become. So to use an analogy, I think employee engagement is about changing the paint on the car, and employee experience is about changing the engine. I think that's kind of the difference between what we're starting to see. And I talk about 3 environments in my book that shape employee experiences, which are culture, technology, and physical space. Companies that truly know and understand their people and invest in culture, technology, and physical space, I think those are the ones that do a good job of shaping employee experience. Second part of your question was the future of employee experience and where it's going. I think it's becoming one of the hottest topics we're starting to see. I see this in my own work as far as the topics that I get asked to speak about. I do around 50 plus talks a year. And I used to do a very diverse set of topics. And now everybody wants to talk about employee experience. People in HR, people in IT, people in management and leadership. Everybody wants to talk about employee experience and how this fits into this new world that we're living in. I think this is going to be and is becoming the next biggest area of investment for companies, the greatest area of competitive advantage for companies. And going forward, I think we'll see much more investment and we'll see much more growth and development around what these areas are. So I'm optimistic about it.
So Jacob, I like the analogy you used about not just changing the paint on the car, but replacing or changing the engine. For some of our audience who maybe want to understand that a bit more, could you give us an example of how a company has changed the engine, as it were, and really transformed the employee experience?
Some of the highest scoring companies in the book were organizations like Microsoft, Accenture, Cisco, LinkedIn. I mean, you could look at something like a Cisco, for example. Cisco's done a lot of different things. They've invested in reverse mentoring programs. They've redesigned all the spaces at the company. They're creating their own internal freelance marketplace for their employees. They invest in emotional intelligence training. They're flattening out their hierarchies. Their entire strategic direction for their people was actually built by their employees, not by their HR team. They're just doing a lot of like, what does it mean to be an employee? What does it mean to be a manager? What does it mean to work at Cisco? And so they're not just thinking of how do we give people free food. They're thinking of like, what's your time going to be like while you're working inside of the company? They have this concept of moments that matter, which is this idea of understanding employees as individuals, not just as workers. So what are the key moments in the life of the people who work at Cisco? And those key moments don't have to be all related to work. A key moment might be when you buy your first house, when you have your first child. And so they're trying to understand their employees as individuals, not just as workers. And this is very different, right? I mean, most of the time when you hear about companies, it's like employee life cycle, you're just a worker. And so Cisco's doing some interesting things around really changing these core practices.
You're talking about deep stuff, changing deeply the company, changing the engine. And that's going to be scary most of the time. Most of the company, they will change the layout, They will put nice layouts in the environment. They will put some nice technology like flat screens and application and mobile phones. But one of the big change, I think, one of the difficult change to do is this culture thing that you describe as well. Because that's, I think, this is where it's very difficult to change habits, to change the relations that we have, the culture, the relations between managers and employees. So for you, what is the most challenging?
People would always say it's challenging. I always say, well, yeah, what'd you expect? It's like some people that say they want to lose weight or eat healthy or stop smoking, and they say, oh my God, this is so hard. And I always say, yeah, like...
No shit, Sherlock.
Yeah, I mean, did you think that one day you will just wake up and just, not eat the donut? Like, of course it's hard. We're talking about changes to behavior. We're talking about changes the way that you think, changes the way that you kind of view the world. And so anything worth doing should be hard. It should be challenging. It should be difficult. For these employee experience environments, I think the big challenge that companies are faced with is they oftentimes view it as three separate things. But these three things have to play together. Technology impacts culture. Culture impacts physical space. Usually, like HR doesn't talk to IT. IT doesn't talk to facilities. And these teams don't talk. And so HR might try to do one thing, and then IT does something else, right? The beautiful flat screens or mobile phones. And then HR might say, well, wait a minute, we have some different ideas. And IT says, no, we're doing this. And then facilities says, this is what we want to do. And like everyone's trying to impact and influence employee behavior and how they feel, but these teams aren't talking to each other. The analogy I like to use there is kind of like, let's say you're sick and you go to a doctor and you have 10 different doctors that are trying to treat you, but those 10 doctors aren't talking to each other. And so everyone gives you a different diagnosis. Everyone wants to give you a different treatment. And you're kind of like, hey, why don't you guys talk to each other and share notes and ideas, and then you can give me the best treatment. And I think that's what we're starting to see inside of companies, is that all these different teams and departments are like the doctors of their organizations, and the employees are the patients that are all kind of wanting something and expecting something. And these teams don't talk to each other.
Right.
So now the challenge is, okay, the people that are responsible for culture, people are responsible for technology, for physical space. How do we bring them together? Let's understand what our employees care about and value. Let's start to design and create something together. That is something that I think that we need to see. But you're right. The change is hard. It's not something that's easy to do. But it's also not the first time to change. Right? I mean, has been around for a while. We had to move from kind of the industrial age to what we're starting to see now. We had to move from these strict hierarchical organizations, smoking in the office, working 9 to 5, to these new kind of flexible, different environments that we're starting to see. So it's kind of a natural evolution in the business world. What we need to do inside of our companies is to educate and to train our employees to understand what this means, why it's important, what they should be doing. But it also means being pretty strict with our managers and saying, look, if you're not on board with this and you don't feel comfortable with this kind of new world of work, you shouldn't be working here. And so we need to kind of take that stance of, we're either going to change or we're not. Right? You either wake up in the morning and commit to losing weight and stop smoking and being healthier, or you don't. There's no kind of like, maybe I'll just eat half a donut today. You do it or you don't.
Wow.
And I think that's the kind of the tough mentality that we need to have at work.
That's actually very tough. I wouldn't expected that, because
well, look, you either commit to investing in your employees or you don't. Right? You either commit to change or you don't. You can't kind of like half-ass it and say, we kind of believe in employee experience. Maybe we'll do like a little bit here and we'll do, and not to use another analogy, but it's like being in a relationship, right? You have a spouse, a significant other, a husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, regardless. If you want to have a good relationship, you don't kind of say, well, I'm just going to treat them well 50% of the time, and then 50% of the time I'll treat them really poorly, and then, it'll be okay. You either commit or you don't.
It is a question of commitment, isn't it? I think when you were describing that, I thought, does he mean you fire everyone that doesn't believe in the vision? I don't think you're saying that. I think what you're saying is you commit to the change, and then you address all of the issues as and when they come up, as opposed to saying today it's black and now it's white and we're done.
And sometimes, right, I mean, it might mean firing some people, right? There's some managers and some executives who are very traditional in their way of thinking. They don't want to change. They don't believe in these ideas. They don't believe in this concept. They want hierarchy. They want their big, nice office. They just want to tell everybody what to do. And for an organization that's trying to change, if you have those types of executives that are kind of like pulling the organization back, it's toxic, right? It's a bad environment and it holds everything else back. You can try to educate and train and encourage these managers to change. And that's, of course, always the preferred approach. But some people, there's not a lot of them, but there are some people where you try to do this and it's like banging your head against a wall. They just don't, it's not happening. And I think in those types of situations, you need to have that conversation and say, look, we as a company are trying to move forward and do these different things, and you have a choice to make, right? You're either going to come along with us and help drive this change, or we don't see a role for you in this company because it's really starting to hurt what we're trying to do. And so you need to have that conversation.
It's an interesting point, because I think I've worked in a few organizations where there have been people like that in the leadership team that are incredibly toxic because they have a certain way of working. However, those people are also seen as being pivotal for the business because they have, the years of experience, they have the industry knowledge, they have the credibility that comes with all of that. And I think there's a lot of fear around letting those people go because then we have to replace all of that experience. They stay in the company because they have all of this credibility, and it seems to outweigh all of the negative that's weighing the company down. So what would you say to somebody who is in, let's say, the CEO of a company that has one executive that has all of the good stuff, but has all of the bad stuff. And that this executive is going to keep the company held in one position, and they're quite influential too, so they'll have a band of followers too. So how would you advise this CEO to deal with that situation?
So when you invest in people, you tend to see greater business health. And so I always pick people above profits. If I had an organization that said, look, we have Bob, this executive. He's really smart when it comes to business. He makes great business decisions, but he doesn't want to change the corporate culture, and he doesn't want to move the business along. I'd say, look, you talk to Bob and you explain things to him. And if he's one of those people that doesn't want to move, Bob needs to leave the company, because Bob might have short-term value for the company. But as we know, in today's world that we live in, things are changing quickly. Competition is coming from all sorts of angles. You don't care about the company now. You care about the company in the future. You care about where we're going to be in the future. right? I mean, Wayne Gretzky always said, don't skate to where the puck is, skate to where the puck is going. And so companies need to skate to where the puck is going. And if you have people like Bob that don't let you skate to where the puck is going, then you're doing more harm than good. So I'm always in favor of putting people above profits. I'm in favor of educating and training these people. But at the same time, if they're willing to just be stuck in their ways and they want to take their experience with them, you say, look, that's fine. I'm willing to make that temporary short-term sacrifice for the long-term gain for the company because it's better for the people. And we will see the return that we need to see if we put somebody else in that position that is going to help us drive change and move quicker.
You like to talk about the future of work, So I would like to get your view on that. Where the business is going, how organizations are changing. What do you see happening? What are the big trends? Sorry, 4 questions at once, but pick the one that you like the most, I guess.
Companies I think are starting to see a pretty interesting change. Yeah. We used to, and I think there are a couple of things that we're starting to see. First is that a company just used to be a company. It just used to be a place that paid people to do something, and that's it. Today, a company is a therapist, a financial planner. It's a gym. Yeah. It's a catering company. It's all these different types of things. Yeah. And we're seeing this blurring of work and life, right? When work is becoming life and life is becoming work. I mean, most of us even spend more time at work than we do at home. And so the very kind of core of an organization is changing to be more than just a place that pays you. It's starting to feel a little bit like home, right? When you show up to work, you have like organic meals that are there for you. You have a couch, you have a TV. Like it feels a little bit like your home. I think the actual physical structure is changing quite a bit. The other thing that we're starting to see is that there used to be a time when you as an employee wanted to work for a company would put up a job posting. They would say, hey, we have a job. Who wants it? And everybody would say, me, I want that job. And today a company says that they have a job posting and employees say, I don't know. Why don't you tell me a little bit about it? Yeah. Why don't you convince me why I as the employee should work there? Whereas before, it used to be about the employee convincing the organization why they should work there. Yeah. And now the employee is saying, you convince me why you think I should be working for you. And that's a very different way of thinking. And because of that, that's why we're starting to see a lot of these investments in employee experience. Companies understand that they can't just rely on their brand to attract people. They can't just rely on money to attract people. They need to rely on something a little bit more. I think that we're going to see much more emphasis on building human organizations. We'll see more AI integration in the workforce. We'll see more investments in upskilling and training and education. I think we'll need to embrace more of this kind of foresight and futurist mentality at work. I think soft skills are going to become increasingly crucial. Empathy, collaboration, all those different types of things that AI can't do. So we'll see all those different types of things happen. But ultimately, all of this is moving towards building a more human company, internally and externally. Sustainable, diverse and inclusive, empathetic. Like that's the big shift that we're starting to see, is creating an organization that's not this like huge corporate, big building, just, big towers and structure, and it's building a human organization, right? It's a company where employees actually want to work for, not where they need to work for. And I think that's ultimately the biggest change that we're starting to see.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Once again, if you would like to support our show, please subscribe to our channel, like us, or share this episode on your social media. Merci.